Some major news happened yesterday that you probably missed, seeing as Kristi Noem's hearing took up most of the day, wherein she proved to the world that that puppy probably spontaneously died after hearing her yap for too long.
Madam Secretary, if you would be quiet because I'm reclaiming my time.
Which is a shame because it was actually some great news. Wisconsin Judge Hannah Dugan hit Trump with the Uno reverse card, the ultimate burn. You may remember Hannah Dugan because she was the judge that was arrested for allegedly allowing an undocumented migrant to go out the side door. Her argument for why she's actually immune from prosecution is just so good. But before we dive into it, I want to ask you guys if you want to help out the channel, like and subscribe to Really American to join our little resistance here. It's free and it helps more than you think. Thank you.
Thank you.
Judge Dugan's arrest sparked a massive backlash because it's a clear step towards this tyrannical authoritarianism that Trump wants to impose on all of us.
Judge Dugan's arrest just this past Friday came a week after all this unfolded, has drawn massive backlash across the country. Democratic Senator Tammy Baldwin of Wisconsin said, quote, "This action fits into the deeply concerning pattern of this president's lawless behavior and undermining courts and Congress's checks on his power," unquote.
Over the last couple of weeks, the story sort of died down as Judge Dugan was released and this case moved into the court system. But now that she's pled not guilty, the argument for her defense is that she can't be prosecuted due to judicial immunity. She specifically cites the Trump versus Supreme Court case, the one that all of us are rightly very, very concerned turns Trump less into a president and more into a authoritarian pseudo-king.
Justice Sonia Sotomayor, a more liberal judge, completely disagrees with the ruling, saying, "In every use of official power, the president is now a king above the law. If he orders the Navy SEAL Team 6 to assassinate a political rival, immune. Organises a military coup to hold on to power, immune."
Until now, every president who has served in the United States has understood that he could be prosecuted if he engaged in criminal conduct while president. Going forward, presidents know they're free.
Now, like I said, although this argument was submitted yesterday, this was sort of underreported. There's not a lot of mainstream media covering the story, except for Fox News, because they are pissed. I'll play a little segment here in which the Fox hosts are so upset that a judge wouldn't allow ICE to barge into her courtroom and let the undocumented person leave through the side door which everybody leaves through. I mean, it's absolutely insane.
So in this new filing submitted by Judge Dugan today, as of midday today, Dugan and her legal team argue, and I'm reading directly from it, quote, "The government cannot prosecute Dugan because she is entitled to judicial immunity for her official acts and that the government has no basis in law to prosecute her." Does she have a leg to stand on there?
I don't see how that dog will hunt, because she was acting not as a judge, in my view, when she took these steps. She went out into the hall, confronted these agents, told them to go see the chief judge, told them that they needed a warrant that they really didn't need. They were allowed to conduct that arrest in the hallway, which is what the chief judge told them. But while they were speaking to the chief judge, she then led this person out a side door and this person evaded federal agents. None of that strikes me as being within the scope of her judicial duties. If it does, then the question is, how far does that extend? Could she have hid the guy in her trunk of her car? Could she have driven him out of the courthouse? Could she have misdirected state officers? When exactly does she stop being a judge when she's helping someone evade federal authority?
She's got a high-profile defense team. We know that, Jonathan. It includes the U.S. Solicitor General Paul Clement, her attorneys also, and I'll finish off with this, arguing the government's prosecution of Dugan is virtually unprecedented and entirely unconstitutional, it reads. It violates the 10th Amendment and fundamental principles of federalism. This is just part of what we are learning at this moment and is something we'll watch closely.
Here's the headline from MSNBC. Judge arrested by Trump administration cites Trump immunity ruling in case. Remember presidential immunity? Get ready for judicial immunity. The problem with this prosecution are legion, but most immediately, the government cannot prosecute Judge Dugan because she is entitled to judicial immunity for her official acts. The Milwaukee judge's lawyers wrote in the motion filed on Wednesday, "Immunity is not a defense to the prosecution to be determined later by a jury or court. It is an absolute bar on prosecution at the outset," they wrote, directly citing Trump v. United States. In her motion to dismiss, Dugan's lawyers quote from the Trump immunity ruling where it said, "In dividing official from unofficial conduct, courts may not inquire into the president's motives." They quoted that line to support the argument that her subjective motivations are irrelevant to immunity. They also cite the Trump immunity ruling's quotation of a prior precedent that said the essence of immunity is the immunity possessor not having to answer for their conduct in court. Judge Dugan, therefore, has both immunity from conviction and immunity from prosecution, they wrote, arguing that these charges have to be dismissed. She can't even be charged for this. Since at least the early 17th century in England and carried on through common law in the United States, judges of record have been entitled to absolute immunity for official acts with a few exceptions not applicable here, they wrote in the dismissal motion. Quoting Chief Justice John Roberts from the Trump case, questions about whether the president may be held liable for particular actions consistent with the separation of powers must be addressed at the outset of a proceeding.
The judge has already entered a motion to dismiss this case, making that argument that she enjoys judicial immunity and shouldn't have the executive branch refereeing what happens in her courtroom. The federal judge didn't tend to that dismissal motion today, but did put the date on the calendar for this trial of an American judge for obstruction.
And Scott, you said a date has been put on the calendar. Do we know the exact date? And what comes next? I'm wondering, I assume she is out, right? She's not being held in jail. She's out on bail, or where is she right now?
Yeah, this is a non-violent felony. She's been released pending her trial date. She's been removed, though, temporarily from her bench at the local courthouse pending the disposition of this case. There'll be a substitute judge handling her matters, at least through July now. Typically in the federal system, a criminal arraignment, a not guilty plea, would be followed by some type of plea agreement negotiation between the prosecutors and the defense. In this case, all bets are off on what happens next. This could be on a trajectory to a trial, a remarkable trial of an American judge sitting across from the U.S. Justice Department in mid-July.
So Judge Dugan is saying, before we can even look at the details of the case, we have to decide whether or not I have immunity. Now, if you ask me, allowing somebody who's in your courtroom to go out the door that they're supposed to go out of when they're done being in your courtroom, that sounds like an act that's in line with official duties to me. It seems like their argument is whether or not she let him out of the door because she disagreed with the administrative warrant that ICE was trying to serve is kind of irrelevant to this whole situation, because him leaving out of that door is in line with her regular duties as a judge, and therefore she's immune from prosecution or even being charged. This is an expert turn of the tables, and I'm really curious to see how the prosecution is going to try to wiggle their way out of this one. I'm Tony Hinderman with Really American, and I'll catch you next time.